I think the other thing too is you want a retirement plan that gives you a clear vision for what your retirement plan is going to look like. I think a lot of people think that retirement planning is just knowing what you have in assets and an idea of what your expenses are. And I think it's so much more than that. So we're going to focus on that. We're going to talk about Social Security. I think Social Security is one of those areas that so many people think it's synonymous with retirement. They retire and they turn it on. And we're going to talk about how you can use your Social Security to be strategic. Then we're going to talk about an income plan. One of the things that I would say is if you ask me, Trey, I'm within 2 years of retirement, what's the number one thing that I need to do? You need what I would call as a spend down plan, knowing which buckets to pull from and in what order. And really what you need is a sound investment strategy that's flexible, that can be adjusted as your health changes, as maybe you move states, as you downsize, as you upsize. So we're going to talk about all those key components. But Ryan, what would you say mistake number one is that we see most often?
Yeah, mistake number one, and honestly, this seems like almost too easy, but just simply failing to plan. Period. Right? If there's no plan in place, many people we meet with constantly just go day by day, month by month, year by year, and they know retirement is coming. They know that eventually they will shift from one phase to the next, right? The work and save years to the preservation and spend years and the enjoyment years. But without a plan, it's misguided for sure. And without a plan, you encourage more mistakes. It was here a little while back, probably a year ago or so, and I met with a great couple, came into my office, and just getting to know them a little bit. And I said, great, what are your goals? What can we accomplish today? And, they were telling me a little bit about themselves. And she said, well, I've been retired for 2 to 3 years, semi-retired. And he said, well, and I retired 2 weeks ago. And then there was this long pause. And she looks at me and she says, and we're trying to figure out if that was the right decision or not. So no pressure on the meeting at that point in time, right? But honestly, just simply not thinking about it, not looking ahead, not saying, hey, what do all of these pieces to the puzzle look like once we actually pull the trigger and look to retire? So simply moving forward day by day, month by month, without any type of plan really is that mistake number one. And I see it frequently,
Yeah. Well, I think that's true. Many people know that saying is, failing to having, or how does it go? Failing to plan is planning to fail. So do you have a retirement plan that's different than just hopefully your advisor makes you money this year? So mistake number two, mismanaging your tax advantage retirement account. So a couple of the mistakes that we see people make often is they borrow money from the 401k, whether that's to purchase a vehicle, to pay themselves the interest, to purchase that boat that they've been waiting on, to add on that beautiful 4-season porch to their house, to remodel their kitchen. It's very common that people borrow against the 401k. But one of the mistakes that we see is that they don't manage the timeline and they end up retiring before the loan's paid off. And now when they retire, they have to pay all of that off basically when they quit contributing to the 401k. So you either have to basically pay it all out of pocket, or you have to take it as income. So if you borrowed $30,000 and you owe $15,000 and you retire and you haven't paid that back and you make $100,000 a year, now they're going to add that $15,000 to your income. And now obviously you're paying more taxes versus having just paid it back without the tax piece. So that's mistake number one. I think mistake number two is we see people take early withdrawals. One of the things, Ryan, that you and I have seen is the people that have done a great job saving. I don't want to say they've been lucky, but there's been a little bit of luck. There's a book called The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas J. Stanley. And one of the things that he talks about is that a lot of average Americans were successful in not having gaps in their careers. Now, obviously, you and I don't have total control over that. But one of the things that we've seen is people that have not been successful is they had 2, 3, 4 pay gaps where for 6 months or a year at a time, they had to borrow from their 401k to stay afloat because they didn't have income. And we found that that significantly impacts them. Oh, looks like I got a call that I'm ignoring. Everybody there?
Still
so, Ryan, why don't you jump into the next point while I figure out how to shut my phone off?
Yeah, mistake number three, right along with mistake number one, is not planning, but not planning specifically for Social Security. There's a lot of information and a lot of different rules and strategies that we see that can really benefit people when it comes to when is the best time to take Social Security. So turning on Social Security is not always synonymous with when you retire, right? You can delay Social Security beyond that. Sometimes people will scale back their working and start collecting Social Security. It depends on what type of industry you're in. It depends on how much energy you have left at the end of the day, et cetera, right? But when you
Right.
look at Social Security and coming up with a plan for that, it's just as impactful as what your 401k or your IRAs or your Roth or whatever the case may be is. Many people rely on Social Security, I would almost say too heavily. So when you look at your plan, for example, if you're married, what are the spousal benefits that you may be eligible for, if eligible at all, right? When you look at it and say, hey, one spouse has a large benefit, one spouse has a smaller benefit, is there a strategy there so that when one spouse passes, the remaining spouse can be in as good of shape as possible?